are reimagining banking and putting our focus on financial empowerment, whether it's helping you with your own accounts or providing free financial empowerment resources like money coaching and our money workshops. But if that's not up your alley, feel free to come in, grab a coffee or tea, hang out, use the Wi-Fi. If you do ever have any questions, please feel free to grab one of us with the name tag and we'll be more than happy to help. I'm so excited for everyone to come today for Denver Startup Week. So glad to have everyone. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Scott and Nathan.
Hi, good afternoon. Officially afternoon now, I believe. I'm Scott Weber.
David Shaw.
And we are glad to be here today at Capital One Cafe. I want to thank Capital One for hosting us, being one of the track sponsors of the product track here at Startup Week. These are the other sponsors. There's a wide range of sponsors. You've probably seen this slide all week at every presentation, so we just want to thank them for making Startup Week so popular, so prevalent here in Denver, and such a growing presence here in the city. And this is us. We are David and Scott of Consumer Research Associates. We are local ethnographic and qualitative researchers. We met in grad school and have been doing this each longer than maybe we care to admit. So this is just some visuals. We're going to today show you many stories. We're going to tell you stories that we've been a part of, stories that we know from the research. And there are times where we have blurred out people just because it's very recent projects, and we've promised people that we won't show them in a public setting, so we've learned that. And other times we're going off of very, very old research that we've done, so we are comfortable showing you those images as well.
And as titled in our presentation, we're here to talk about confidence. And I want to get some idea of definitions of confidence that people have coming into this. So if anybody's got one that you want to throw out to us, great. Yes. Comfort with yourself. Willingness to take action. Yes.
I believe you.
I believe you. And I hope you'll believe me by the end of this. For the purposes, go ahead.
Trusting in results.
Trusting in results. We're going to operationalize this definition so that we're all on the same page as we start this. The degree to which you feel your actions will achieve positive results. Again, that's the degree to which you feel your actions will achieve positive results. When Scott and I started thinking about this topic, we went to where everybody goes at first, Google. We started Googling, how do you inspire confidence in customers? And you get the same information over and over. It says, have customer testimonials, have lots of reviews of your product, be open and transparent about your history. All of these things that, we're here for Startup Week, so most people don't have lots of testimonials. They don't have a long history. When you have 20 programmers who have each been working 10 years and you say we've been programming software for 200 years, nobody's buying that. That's not a real history. So the way we're thinking about confidence is that it's something that you give to a customer or a potential customer, as opposed to those definitions where we're asking them to give something to us. We're asking them to place their trust in us. Our whole goal here is to come to an understanding of how we can reach out to customers and potential customers, understand them, and thereby gain their confidence, as opposed to just asking them to trust us. Again, there are countless competitors, competitor A, B, C, that are also vying for the trust, and the way you're going to ultimately, we'll argue, gain customers' trust and confidence is by understanding them, learning about them, and having that drive all of your product marketing and innovation. Here's what the discussion is going to look like today. We're going to talk a little more about this new notion of confidence. We're going to reinterpret some popular theories of marketing and product marketing through this lens of confidence. We're going to talk a little bit about how the brain works with confidence, just to give ourselves a little more credibility. We're going to talk about confidence in some popular brands that everybody knows about and how these brands started to instill confidence in their customers and gain their customers' confidence. We're going to talk about confidence that we've uncovered in our client work. And then we're going to lightly touch on how to instill confidence in your own customers.
And there's wow, that's very loud. As we were saying, there's an operationalized definition of confidence. And when we were thinking about how to discuss the different ways that we think of confidence, we thought about a pole vaulter. And we thought about the different ways that the pole vaulter might have confidence. And we think of, to my right here, as kind of an external confidence. Confidence in the tool, confidence in the product. The pole will get you over the bar. Whereas the way we're thinking about confidence, and the way we're going to talk about it today, is more of an internal perspective. The pole vaulter has confidence in herself. The pole vaulter believes she can do this through tools, through products. As we blow that out, obviously, through when you think of your company's products. But we think about this as more external and more internal. And this internal vision of confidence, I can do it, is really where we're going to be focusing on today.
This is also a shift that you see in advertising, that we're going from somebody saying, we make the best poles for vaulting, to we're going to make you the best pole vaulter.
And you can see here in an example that has been around a while, and I believe Home Depot has even moved away from this slogan. But here is internal confidence first. You can do it. It is about you. It is about the customer. It's about the consumer. We can help. We are Home Depot. In this instance, we are the product or service or tool, but it's about you first. And if you want to move toward a more consumer-focused, customer-focused confidence, you have to focus on the customer, which they do very well here through this old slogan that I've been hearing for years and had never really thought about it, that they were really using two different variations of confidence and putting it on the consumer themselves. This is an example also using that internal confidence. And this is Rent the Runway. And this is a company that we heard about through How I Built This, which is one of our favorite podcasts. I'm sure many in this room listen to this as well. And I'm going to read a very specific quote because when I was listening to this and when we were conceptualizing this notion of confidence, this quote by the co-founder, Jen Hyman, really came across. She talked about, as she was developing Rent the Runway, that she had confidence in herself, had confidence in her idea, had confidence that there was a market out there for Rent the Runway. And if you're not familiar with Rent the Runway, you rent fabulous dresses, fabulous clothes for a short period of time, and then give them back. So it makes it very easy to wear clothes short term, and then you don't have to blow your budget. So you have a fabulous wardrobe that's available to you for very short periods of time. And she said that when she was developing this, quote, we did some real life research. We bought dresses, we opened a pop-up store, we saw what worked and what did not. And that's about that confidence in the product, that confidence in the service, and it led her to believe that she was on the right track. And toward the end of the interview, she was talking about how she sees her company now, and she said, I saw that it was mission-driven. I saw that it was driving self-confidence, and it was making women feel incredible about themselves. Yes, they were providing dresses. Yes, they were providing clothing, but what they were really providing is self-confidence. Again, internal self-confidence to their customers. And her own confidence in her idea, as she described it, grew because she saw the confidence of her customers grow. And that's really, for us, that lens through which you can see products and services as about providing confidence rather than for people rather than for being confident in the product itself.
Why confidence? This Pepsi debacle. Pepsi, their internal advertising group, created this ad, and it was trying to expose a new generation of potential Pepsi drinkers to millennials. They put Kendall Jenner in there, and she goes into the middle of a protest and hands a police officer a Pepsi, and everybody's happy and starts dancing. The target audience was really offended by this. The target audience says this is trivializing the Black Lives Matter movement. They don't get us, they don't understand us. So it's an embarrassing thing for Pepsi. Pepsi's got a lot of money though. They can recover from this. And if they don't recover getting millennials to drink Pepsi, then they'll buy whatever the millennials are drinking. But this is a prime example of the importance of understanding your audience, because a lot of times we think we have great ideas, we're not testing them externally and outside, and we're losing the confidence of our target consumers. Anybody over the age of 35 has some familiarity with this creepy thing. For those of you who do not recognize this, he's called Mr. Clippy, I believe, or Clippy, and he was Microsoft contextual help in the late 90s. So every time you would open a Microsoft program, he would just pop up and say, hey, what are you trying to do? Do you have questions? And then you could click close and hide, and then he would disappear. And then you'd be working a little while and you'd pause, and then all of a sudden, whoop, it's in the bottom corner of your screen asking if you need help. It was so annoying, it was a big bomb. Well, Microsoft did their research when they developed Mr. Clippy. And what the research told Microsoft was that women did not like this. They said, I'm working and I feel like this dude is leering at me. Make him go away, make him go away. It was a big fail. So it's a cautionary tale from the other side that you can do your research, and if you don't listen to the consumers, again, you will lose their confidence.
There we go. As we introduced earlier, we're going to talk about a little bit of the ways that we see confidence really being all around you as a theory, and we see it inside of popular theories. The paradox of choice, I'm sure some or most of you are familiar with this, Barry Schwartz. More choice is not always a good thing, right? There's this idea that more is better, more choice is better. This looks wonderful, 99 cent store, look at all these choices. More choice can lead to lower levels of happiness. It can lead to less happiness with any choice you make, and even the process itself of choosing. So sometimes you have just too many choices. And going back to 1956, George Miller came up with this idea of the magic number, the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. It was a great paper title. And he said that you can keep about 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of discrete information in your memory at any one time, in your short-term memory. So when you walk into a store like this, well, there's your 7 plus or minus 2 on either side. Look at how many more choices you have. There's been obviously more research since '56. Some say it's the number of discrete items you can keep in your head is 4. Some say it's a little more. The idea is that there is a limit, and that there is a limit to the number of choices you can keep in your head. And certainly that limit is way less than the number of items pictured here. Right? So when you walk into the store, you feel that paradox of choice. Am I going to make the right choice? What do I want? I don't know. Am I going to feel good about my choice? Maybe you just walk out without choosing, right? Because you're just so overwhelmed. We would argue that the paradox of choice leads to less confidence in consumers. It leads to less internal confidence, because you are just not sure when confronted with all of these things what you are going to do, if you can make the right choice, how you make the right choice. It's just incredibly overwhelming. Decision making is difficult.
It's a resource-intensive process that requires two sides of the brain that are often in conflict. The default state of the brain is an indecisive disagreement. Each side is insisting that the other side's wrong. Why is this important in the paradox of choice? If you're standing in front of a wall of televisions at Best Buy, and there are 100 televisions, your slow, rational brain is not able to start comparing and contrasting all of these televisions to come up with the right decision. If you, again, as Scott was saying, if you don't make the right decision, the risk is that you would leave without making the decision. You're also afraid that you're going to make the wrong decision. So the brain is working in two different levels at the same time. I want to ask the paradox of choice. Can anybody think of an industry? I've got one in my mind that has used to be where you go in, you'd have so many choices, you'd be overwhelmed, and somebody came up with an innovation that made it. Yes? Exactly, that's what I was thinking. This whole idea of mattresses, where you can get a mattress in a box and a message that it's comfortable no matter how you sleep. It takes that experience of going into a mattress store, trying, do I like the firm, do I like the soft? It takes those questions away because you're convinced that you're going to get the right product.
Or some companies in the mattress industry, I would say, did an excellent job of combating the paradox of choice. And as David's saying, it's that process of choosing that's exhausting, right? There's research about ego fatigue or decision fatigue, it's called. This was from 2002, that suggested that we get worse at making decisions over time, right? And if anyone has ever bought a car or done any decision-intensive process, the more you go on, the more the questions, the more decisions you have to make, you just get exhausted. And you can think about it, essentially there's a finite amount of self-control that your brain has. So we're coming up on Halloween, right? It's more, I guess this more relates to after Halloween. You're gonna go into your office, you're gonna go over and there's gonna be a bowl of candy. It's gonna be all the stuff you love. You're gonna be sitting at that conference table and you sit, it's after lunch and you think, I'm not gonna have candy, I'm good. The meeting goes on 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Well, just one, right? Because your brain gets tired of saying no. There's free ice cream in the back. It's great, it's free. Maybe you think when we started, oh, they announced that before, I'm not interested. Now it's 12:20. Oh, there's still free ice cream in the back. We're gonna take a break in a little while. It's still gonna be there. How long can you say no to free ice cream? Right? It's not easy. How do you combat that paradox of choice? How do you make it easier to make decisions? How do you get over ego fatigue or decision fatigue? Reduce the number of choices. The mattress industry did a great job, right? Make it easier to say, I don't have that many choices. I'm not going to get as exhausted, right? Give me more confidence that I'm going to be making the right decision. Help people tell them apart from each other. Don't have so many choices that are so close to each other. That 99-cent store is overwhelming, right? If they had 6 kinds of candy and 6 kinds of, I don't even know what's there, right? Cleaning products, 6 kinds of anything, it would be easier for you to make those decisions. And start with the easier, the more important decisions, right? So if you want your customers to have more confidence in the decisions they're making, this is how to combat the paradox of choice, because we really are living in a world of paradox of choice. Everything is available in overwhelming supply.
And an example of this, again, this wall of televisions at Best Buy. When Target originally started selling large electronics and sold televisions, they would have 3 in each size, and they were priced and identified as good, better, best. It made it very easy for people to make a decision. How many people here recognize this curve? Okay, good. We got the right people. You might recognize it by other terminology that we'll get to, but I'm going to talk about it in its origins. This graph is the diffusion of innovations. Like any other bell curve, the numbers add up to 100 because we're talking about a total population. This was developed originally in 1962 by a scholar that Scott and I studied in grad school. He was Everett Rogers, was a sociologist of rural living. And so he was studying how do medical technologies make it onto the plains. He was at the University of Iowa, so he was in this expansive plain region. How do we get medical technology here? So, for example, when you think about colonoscopies, there was a time at which colonoscopy, you have to go to the city, and there's one place that does it. And then it started to spread a little bit. And those were the innovators. It started to spread a little bit. More hospitals were adopting the technologies to do colonoscopies. And those were the early adopters. Then you get over here, the early majority, the late majority, and then finally there's that hospital that ends up closing down because it doesn't have any services. We use this as communication scholars to kind of study, during our time, the growth of home computing and internet. It was used in communication to study the spread of the telephone, the television, the VCR. I happen to be the child of people who were early adopters of the VCR, and I remember all of the neighbors coming to the house to watch stuff, and what they watched is burnt in the memories. It's, not appropriate content. It's what parents watched in the 70s. And it's spreading through, it's diffusing culture. And people are learning about it, they're communicating about these new technologies with one another and sharing their experiences. And what's happening over here, somebody here is waiting to see that it really works, that it's really going to be good for me and valuable to me, and that the price is ultimately going to come down. So I want to make sure I'm getting all my points here. Yes, the other point of this this diffusion of innovations, we might use this, and we're going to be talking about this a little bit, the adoption process. In our product marketing, we all talk about phases of awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, and adoption or rejection. That same theory came out of 1962, so some things stay. And they change. Or, as usual, of course, academics get their work stolen by consultants. And they rename it. And so in the early 90s, Jeffrey Moore wrote a book that I'm sure most of you who raised your hands recognize, Crossing the Chasm, Marketing and Selling High-Tech Products to Mainstream Customers. What Jeffrey Moore did with this was identify this break point here, where new companies and startups are going to make or break it. Your success depends on your ability to get beyond innovators and early adopters of your product and get into the early majority, late majority, and laggards. Again, what does confidence have to do with this? People in all of these groups are learning from one another. They're seeking information and insights from one another. This group wants to know that it's working here. This group wants to know that it's working for these people. This group wants to know that it's working for these people. So over the course of time, the goal is to get everybody to adopt a product. I mean, cell phones are pretty ubiquitous. We can map those up to this. But most products aren't going to make it all the way through the technology adoption life cycle. I asked our friends at Mike's Camera to give me some sample thinking here. One of the ways to use the technology adoption life cycle to your benefit is to understand that there are different audiences for your products at different phases in time. So I asked Mike's Camera, what happens with Canon? I didn't ask specifically about Canon, they came back with Canon. I said, can you tell me about a series of products, and I gave them descriptions of what each cell would look like, and they came back with these products. We'll start from this side. We'll read it backwards. The laggards. If somebody comes in and they're not a photographer or they're not they're not a hobbyist or anything, they might buy the point-and-click camera. That's the most you're going to get from them. The late majority. Sadly, this was the camera I bought from them, and I was told it was the late majority. And I spent a lot of money on it. But the Canon Rebel series. These are a nicer body, and it's got the interchangeable lenses. I thought it was new. It's kind of old technology now. Go over to early majority. They've got a lot more video capability in the camera, and it's a lot more compact despite the scale of our graph. The early adopters, this camera, they said, it's a full frame sensor. And if you've shopped for cameras before, you realize the sensor is the direct relationship to the image quality. If you buy something with a small sensor, it's got lower image quality. If you buy something with a large sensor, it's better image quality. And this being a full sensor is the size of 35 millimeter film negatives. So it's a new technology that we're finally able to get it into a smaller camera. It used to be really big to be able to do a full-size digital, a full-frame digital sensor. And then finally, they said, this is our newest thing. Canon enthusiasts have been waiting for this. It's a full-frame sensor, and it's got a mirrorless system. You know, when you look in your camera, it's a series of mirrors that go from the lens to the viewfinder. This has a digital sensor instead of that tracklet funnel of mirrors. So this was the first time that they were able to get that much technology into a camera. So again, this is an opportunity to take an understanding of how products are used through the life cycle and maximize it to fit all the customer needs. And I'll give another little story. My first job out of grad school was working at a documentation consulting firm. And we were putting together help, out-of-box instructions, and all of the manuals that you would see in technology. This is late 90s, early 2000s. And this was also before Apple changed it and said, oh, the instructions are open, plug in, and turn on. This was like full-on documentation. And what we did was we took the same idea, and we go back. We took this same idea of the technology adoption life cycle and said for our clients, you've got a new product, what level of support do innovators need? Very little. The innovators are the people who are going to open it and start tinkering with it. If there was any instruction, they'd throw it away. The early adopters, what kind of support do those people need? What kind of information support do those folks need? And we said, this is where somebody's using a forum or a billboard or a chat, and people are sharing information among other super users. And then we got here. We said, this is where, if you're following the technology adoption lifecycle, if you want to cross the chasm and reach those mainstream markets, this was the point in time at which you have to really invest in support, help, and education to make sure that these people have smooth sailing getting into your product. Because if they don't, they're not coming. The rest of these people aren't coming.
Sitting this close to such a large screen, I now realize this is the camera that we recently bought. So there you go. Now I know where I stand on the technology laggard. Yeah, I didn't see that in the previous when we were putting this together. Usability research, this is something I'm certain that many of you in this room are familiar with. We think of it less as a popular theory, which is what we're talking about right now, than a popular practice. And I'm sure many of your companies, if you're not doing this now, you will be doing it today. And we see this usability research, testing websites, testing how people engage with them, putting people in front of them and watching and giving tasks Sometimes this is done completely online. Sometimes we do it sitting in the room with people, watching on a second screen, giving commands, just seeing how people go through a website. This for us is a lens of confidence. This is about confidence, usability research. Again, going back to grad school days, Jacob Nielsen said usability is defined by 5 components. And in our research, and I'm sure if you've done this, you've seen this as well, we have seen people walk away from a website, go to a different website, go to a competitor's website for every one of these 5 steps. And we've seen this in our work, and you've probably seen it in your work. Learnability, right? How easy is it for users to accomplish basic tasks the first time they go onto a website? Right? If you are low in learnability, people will walk away. If they lack confidence in that, they will walk away. Efficiency. Once users have learned the design, how quickly can they perform tasks? Again, these 5 elements, when we do usability testing, when you do usability testing, you're probably looking at all of these. Memorability. When users return to the design after a period of not using it, how easy can they re-establish proficiency? How easy is it to walk away and come back and know where you were? Errors. We know they're going to happen. The question is, how many errors do people make? How severe are they? And how easily can they recover from them? So you've got to go into any usability testing knowing you're going to see errors. The question is, how quickly can people turn back from them? And satisfaction, right? Nielsen's term was satisfaction. How pleasant is it to use the design? We would say, how confident does someone feel using the design? And that for us is the world of usability. And again, we find that to be, I don't think there's a lot of popular literature using the phrase confidence in here, but for us, that's the lens through which we see our usability research.
Back to our definition. When anybody who's done usability testing, as Scott said, you've seen people fail miserably, just get completely deflated, get flustered, confused. But on the other hand, when they do something right, and when the degree to which you feel your actions will achieve positive results, boom, bravo.
You know it as the user, you know it as the researchers, you know when you're there, and that's exactly what you're looking for. And if we think about today, going online, whether it's at a site from your company or something you're developing, or just the general internet, there is a lack of trust of what you're seeing. There's a lack of trust of, am I being scammed? There's a sense of, I do not know who to trust. I'm not confident in what's going on. That's where this working through usability research to give confidence, I just think is an incredibly important element that we use in our work, and I think you'll be using in your work, online, mobile, whatever it is, whatever the application is, whatever the medium is. You'll be able to understand that through a lens of, am I giving internal confidence to my users?
The science of confidence. Scott and I are both PhDs, but in the social sciences. Science is an area where we know enough to be a little dangerous, so we're going to keep this very light as we talk about some of the brain and how the brain acts on and interprets confidence. So what is confidence? On one level, it's a biological and chemical process of our brain that is hardwired over time. Neuroscience is revealing how the brain architecture and the chemicals like dopamine and the dopamine neurons are vital to decision making and our sense of confidence. Dopamine, we've all heard, it's the feel-good stuff. It comes from a rush of adrenaline, it comes from drugs, it comes from happiness, it comes from love, it comes from confidence. The purpose of dopamine is to predict future events. And when you start predicting future events right, the dopamine starts firing. When you're navigating a website and you click the logo in the upper left-hand corner, and it takes you back to the home page as you expected, that predictable result. You're happy, the dopamine fires, it reinforces that idea, keep going back here, that's going to work. If you hit the icon, the logo in the upper left, and it doesn't take you to the home page, the dopamine stops firing, and you get kind of bummed out. And then you start losing the joy and the experience and the confidence of using that site or whatever that product would be. Our flaw as humans is that we like to see patterns maybe where there are not some. And we think that we can outsmart the dopamine. And we also get that rush from trying to outsmart the dopamine. Here's some basic dopamine research. A rat in a tea maze, cheese on one side or the other. If the cheese is on side A for a rat, the rat will learn to go there most of the time. If it's there, he'll go there 60% of the time. He just starts to realize where the reward is. If you start moving the cheese around, he's still going to go back to where he knows it is because that's where he's happy. Despite the fact that he's got eyes on the side of his head, you can really conceivably see both in our diagram. But when you put a human in this maze and you start mixing it up, we start looking for patterns. The rat's not looking for patterns. The rat's just going for the dopamine release, and he's getting it right 60% of the time. Humans, we can put it there 60% of the time. They're only going to find it 52% of the time because we think that we can see a pattern where there isn't and outsmart the way everybody's thinking.
Think right up the street, right? The Nuggets play. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but Nikola Jokic. He is a three-point shooting wizard. He's a forward. He's a center sometimes. He's a big man who can shoot three. So you can imagine in the middle of the game, whatever it is,